Today I am making some banana spice pancakes. These are my family's favorite pancakes for breakfast. Here's what we're going to use. Some flour. You can use all AP flour or mix it with a little whole wheat. I'll do a mix today. And then a little bit of baking powder for the rise. We're going to use a banana, some eggs, milk, and oil for the liquids. Other things we're going to mix in for flavors is sugar, ginger, cinnamon, and nutmeg. Let's get started. Pancake batter is a pretty simple recipe. The ratio is 1 cup of flour to 1 cup of liquids. The liquid ingredients is just an egg, a couple tablespoons of melted butter or oil, and enough milk to make 1 cup. Today we're replacing a little bit of the liquid with a mashed banana. That's a little thicker than the milk it replaces, so in order to account for that, we need to add a couple tablespoons of milk at the end to get the right thickness. We're going to do that by eye at the end. I'll show you how. It depends on the size of the banana and the size of your eggs on whether you're going to use 1 to 2 tablespoons of extra milk. We'll do a little whole wheat flour, 1 cup of that. Whole wheat's denser, so a cup of that's 145 grams. All right, for each cup, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of baking powder as the rising agent. To that, we're going to add a 1/4 cup of sugar. You can add more or less that you like, but I think that's a good amount for pancakes. Now here's the spice mix. This is optional. My kids just like these spice pancakes, so more or less to suit your taste. All right, but the ones I like is a little bit of cinnamon. So I'll use, actually that was too much, about a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. And nutmeg, 1/4 teaspoon nutmeg. 1/4 teaspoon of, come on, ginger. All right, we just like them. Okay, just whisk those dry ingredients together to mix. You want to do it while they're all dry, because you're trying to minimize the amount of mixing once we add the liquids. The more you mix, the tougher the pancake's are going to be. That's good. Now we're going to do our wet ingredients. That's about the right ripeness for a banana. You want it at least this dark, so it develops strong banana flavors and sweetness. And if it's greener, it just doesn't give as much flavor. And it's a great way to use up bananas that are going over ripe. To that, we're going to add 2 eggs. Okay, we're just going to mash that all up and then whisk it together. That's pretty good. To that, we're going to add about a 1/4 cup of vegetable oil, or you can use melted butter if you want. And I'm just going to measure it off this thing so I don't dirty up another. And then lastly, we're going to top up these ingredients with milk to the 1 pint spot. Okay, so that's 2 cups of total liquid. All right, so I said the ratio early, but it's basically a cup of liquid to a cup of flour. All right, so you can see I've kind of made a little bit of a well in the flour. Watch what I do. I'm going to pour this all in here, and the goal with pancakes, probably one of the most critical things once you get the recipe right, is to minimize the mixing. So look what I'm doing. I'm just splashing it around, getting a little bit of mixing without developing gluten in the flour. All right, now I'm just going to stir it together. Okay, start looking at it. Experience tells me how thick it needs to be. All right, and as it comes together there, I'm already can tell that I'm going to need just a couple tablespoons more liquid. All right, so I'm going to do that right now. Rinse out my mixture, and I'm just doing it now so that I don't have to get all the way mixed and then remix again. That adds too much mixing. So I'm just going to let that liquid blend in without tons of mixing. hit the dry ingredients. All right. Much as I can. All right, now just a couple strokes, and there you go. You see how it's still got lumps in it? That is the correct amount. Minimum mixing, a little bit of lumps. All right, this looks a couple minutes. Now look what I'm doing. It evaporates, but it doesn't ball up, all right? So that tells me it's the right temperature. I'm just gonna put a little bit of oil on there, oil the pan. All right, how big you make your pancakes is your own thing, but for me, I like to double it up so I can fit 2 across. And nobody ever seems to like them that big when I make them too big, so what I'm using is 1/3 of a cup. You just have to get used to what you like. All right, so about 1/3 of a cup right there. But what's really nice is when you find a spoon that has the right amount. You see the thickness of the batter? Okay. That's about how thick. If you make it this thick, you'll get nice high-rising pancakes. If you make it thinner, the pancakes will spread out and you'll get thin, flatter pancakes. So there's a little bit of adjustment for what you like. You saw how I added a little bit of liquid right there at the end to get this thickness. If I hadn't added that, it would have just been too thick. All right, here we go. Just spread them out. All right, now I've done this a million times. You get, oh, let me make as big as I can, and then you put a little bit too much, and they touch each other and join, and just don't do it. It's not worth the pain of getting in there with your spatula, cutting them apart, so you can flip them. Just make them a little bit smaller. All right. But I can't resist trying to get them as big as I can, so they end up flowing together almost every time anyways. All right, one of the keys here is that you got to make sure you don't run it too hot. If you run it too hot, they brown on the bottom before the flour has cooked and before the heat inside has risen enough to release gases from the baking powder, and they won't puff up. So what you want is to be able to start seeing little bubbles popping up in the pancake, and that is telling you that you're getting gases released from the baking powder heating up. All right, and the edges should start to come drying in a little bit. And by the time the edges dry into about here, and we got a bunch of bubbles on the top, we should be able to lift it up and see that it's not too brown. Now see how this side of the pan is probably a little hotter up here? That is the first one, but let's take a look at the bottom. All right, so there you go. That's a good amount of doneness, but the top's not quite ready yet. So I'm going to turn that far side of the pan down just a little bit. All right, here we go. You see how we're starting to get all bubbles in here, bubbles in here. There you go. You see the bubbles coming up, and you can also see that they're rising a little bit. The shine from the lights may make it difficult for you to see, but you see how it's starting to dry? The outer edge is drying in, okay? Those are about ready to flip. Let's flip them up and see what it looks like on the bottom. Okay, so we'll start with that one and flip it. That's a good amount of doneness. Now this one looks like it's next. Now you see what I'm talking about, how they hook together? The pain. You got to cut it, cut it. Okay, let's flip that. All right, that is a perfect doneness to me. All right. Perfect. You can really smell that banana spice. All right, I don't have this maybe perfectly adjusted, centered up, so that side of the pan is hotter. Move the pan a little bit. Okay, there we go. When I flip them, you can see that they're about that thick, but they're going to keep rising because I put them over wet on the top. If you wait till the top is completely dry, then they don't rise as much anymore. So you want a little bit of wetness so that both sides have heat coming up to create gas and it's still liquid enough to expand. Let's talk about the look. You see how this has little spots and everything on it here? And these are more uniformly brown. That comes from any oil, how much oil. You got to oil the pan when you haven't used it for a bit. It's been stored because any oil on there got dried. So you do get these little spots from having a little bit of oil. Once you've done a batch or two like this, and up here in the north, on this side, I must have scraped off the oil. You get a nice flat, even brown color when it's no oil built up on the pan, no liquid droplets. So you can kind of choose how you want them. If you want that type of a look, just put a little bit more oil to the pan. And put it on pause, but it's been about a minute and a half, just so you get an idea. I know you don't want to watch the entire thing just sit there and cook, but we're starting to flip these now and we're getting this kind of a brown color on it. All right, now on the second side you get spots and everything because it started to dry up and on the top and cook a little bit from before, and you get high spots when it was sitting there, and when you flip it, only those high spots get brown. So the second side is almost always going to be spotty. Present them the way you like them. Okay, let's check them. That's about the doneness I like. Okay, you can see the loft that they got to them. All right, so we'll take them off, stack them. Okay, I like to make sure that one's starting to get a little brown while I was talking. Okay, good. Okay, make sure the pan is cleaned off. Scoop a little bit more oil back out that ran down in there. And there you have it, banana spice pancakes and maple syrup is what I always like to serve on them. This recipe makes 12 pancakes, so each cup of flour and cup of liquid basically will make 6 pancakes for you. Enjoy. Hey, if you like this kind of content, I'd sure appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel. Click that button down below. Click the like button. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.